let's talk about reading invisible characters. The first question you might have is, well, what exactly is an invisible character? Well, let me tell you about that. When you type at the keyboard, you hit enter to end one line and to start another. You've probably done this millions of times without thinking about it at all. This really does put a character in the computer that we have to deal with. Now, the character is called \n, and it stands for Newline. And this character isn't visible other than indirectly. So we can see that there's a new line that starts. What we can't see is that there's actually a little hidden character that causes the new line to start. Now, this character is the source of a lot of trouble in programming. There are two other characters that are quite similar to it. One is the tab, \T, and the other is the return, which is \R. There's some very subtle differences between Newlines and returns that have to do with whether you're using a PC or a Macintosh. Luckily, Java hides those from us so we don't have to deal with them, but ordinarily in programming you do. When we go to read things in, we use a scanner object. And first we construct it. So we create a scanner to read in things from the keyboard, which I usually call keyboard, and that equals new scanner of system.in. System.in is the fancy computer name for the keyboard. And so this sets up a usable keyboard. Now, this scanner object will allow us to read in characters entered at the keyboard and interpret them as different types. So, for example, we can read in strings, ints, and doubles. Those are the ones we'll read in the most. There are a couple of different methods that cause a lot of confusion. One is next and the other is nextLine. Now, the reason there's confusion here is the methods behave differently. So let's talk about exactly what they do. Next reads characters until it finds a white space. Now, when I say a white space, I mean a space, a tab, a new line, or a return. These are all white space characters. The thing about next is it doesn't remove the white space. So it uses it to separate things, but it doesn't actually take it out. nextLine, on the other hand, reads characters until a new line is found. So it doesn't separate things with spaces and tabs and returns, only with new lines. But here's the tricky part. nextLine actually does get rid of the new line. So let's look at an example. Let's read some data. Suppose we have a line that starts out one of Robert Frost's most famous poems, Whose Woods? And then there's an enter. Now remember, you're not used to seeing that enter there, and it isn't going to show up when you enter things into your computer, but it is there. That is the new line character. So keyboard.next would read whose. Now I'm being extremely precise in how I show this, and you need to be precise in how you think about it. It does not read in the space after whose. That's a white space character, and that one is left. This leaves space, woods, \n behind. The space is there. Now, if we call keyboard.next again, it will read in woods. So it removes the space, then it takes the next characters until the following white space character, which is a new line character. And then it leaves the new line behind. If instead of calling next we had called nextLine, it would have read in whose woods, and it would have removed the new line. So that's the difference between the two commands. Now let's talk about integers in Newlines. Suppose you want to read in an age and a name. So maybe 14, enter, and then Maggie, enter. So when this is in the computer, it will be 14, \n, Maggie, \n. So if we call keyboard.nextInt first, it will read in 14 because nextInt reads in integers, again using white space as separators. So nextInt works exactly the same way that next does. This leaves the new line behind. Now if we read keyboard.nextLine, this removes the new line. If you use keyboard.next to read Maggie, well, guess what? That leaves the new line behind again. So a better choice would have been to use keyboard.nextLine. That would have given you Maggie, but also removed the new line character so it doesn't cause you trouble. Very subtle difference, but one that makes a big difference when you're doing input. So here are the rules. When you're reading data from the keyboard, you really need to think about where those Newline characters are all the time. So the best strategy that I know is to read in the Newline characters just as carefully as you do the data. If you think about where they are, you can just read them in automatically with nextLine, and then they're not going to cause you bugs in your programs. Trust me, it's easier this way. So keep programming.